you have wounds, yet they're not healed, sometimes you will bleed on others. To stop the bleed, you have to heal the wound, and that wound is within. And so that's where, we're guiding them to go inward to find those wounds and heal them. It creates a more grounded presence and a more regulated nervous system.
Welcome to Unmute with Priya, the podcast where silence ends, voices rise, and women rediscover the freedom to speak and live authentically, especially in life after 40. This show is proudly sponsored by Project Icon. I'm your host, Priya Sudarsanam. Let's dive into today's conversation. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about somatic breathwork, healing, and doing a deep dive into how this form of breathwork can really support us in our healing journey. And I want to introduce my guest today, Angel Cordova. Angel, welcome to the show, and I am thrilled to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Priya.
It's you and I know each other from a different group, and we got to connect, and I was really excited that I was going to be able to have you on my show because I know what you have to offer is so amazing and so transformative.
Yes, it really is. It's been a blessing to be able to share that with people I meet and my clients, and just really helping, people just kind of find themselves and heal through the power of the breath.
So your business name is Somatic Breathwork. And First off, I want you to tell me a little bit about how you got started, because from our conversations, you weren't always doing this kind of work.
No, I'm a dental hygienist for the past 30 years, 50. That's my age almost. So 30 years. And I came to the end of a marriage about 6 years ago, and that was extremely painful. And so during my healing process of grieving the loss of a dream that I once had from childhood, when it started to fall apart, I realized, quickly that I was part of the equation. And so I needed to figure out my part. And because I knew at that point I wasn't able to heal anybody else, I wasn't able to control anybody else's behavior or the outcome of this marriage kind of falling apart. So I needed to figure out what part I played in it, so that going forward I would make choices that were more aligned with me, and picking a partner that is in my own values and in my alignment of where I want to go in my future. So in the healing process, I found breath work through just a bunch of different modalities. I tried a lot of different modalities, and that one I came to, and I realized there's power in the breath. And I look at breath work as our breath is the remote control to our nervous system. And so with that, it led me through a beautiful journey of healing. And then I started sharing that with others. And so that's kind of where I'm at today, sharing with others the power of the breath.
I have never heard that before. I love that remote control of our nervous system. It really is. And if you think about it on a daily basis, how many times are we actually consciously breathing? Probably remember to breathe when we've run out of air.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the certain type of breath work that you offer.
Okay, so there's many different modalities of breath work. I offer transformational breath work, or similar to holotrophic breath work. And so what that is actually doing is it's loosening up the nervous system. When we have had trauma as children, and trauma can show up as big T, like, big events, sexual trauma, abuse, big traumas. And then there's little T traumas, that is not feeling seen, not feeling heard, not feeling valued. So both of these kind of traumas can come up with breath work. So when I lead a person in a breath work journey, I'm really getting them to loosen up the nervous system with the power of the breath. And so when that happens, it shakes loose some of these blocked energy sources inside them, which carry the trauma. On a day-to-day basis, we kind of function from 5% of our conscious brain. And so 95% of our day-to-day actions are a program that had been, programmed into us as a child. And, I always think of it as when you're learning to drive a car, the very first time you get in the car, you are very conscious about, okay, if you're driving a stick shift, okay, what gear am I in? Clutch in, gas on, you're very conscious of everything you're doing. But the more experience you get, then it's a program. You've like downloaded how to do these things without consciously thinking about it. And so then it becomes the program or the system that you're using kind of just to keep going in the car. That's the same thing with our childhood. We are programmed by our parents, by society, by religion or church, school, lots of different aspects of our childhood are influencing the programming that is going into us. So, if our parents say liver is horrible, we're not going to eat liver. Well, of course, I've never had liver, but I hate liver because I've been programmed like it's bad and, we don't eat it. And so that's what the breath work is doing, is going in and kind of loosening up these programs and letting a person release the energy maybe of suppressed emotions. I have many clients who suppressed anger, suppressed sadness, grief. They had to kind of alter their authentic version of themselves to be able to be in connection with their caregivers, because the authentic version was kind of getting maybe disciplined, or the authentic version was not being seen or heard, or they felt not loved. So they altered that authentic version to become, to stay in connection or to stay attached to their caregiver. And so that program is now in their adulthood is no longer serving the same purpose as it did in childhood. In childhood, it served as a survival purpose to stay connected to their caregiver. The child cannot live without a caregiver taking care of them. So that's the purpose that alteration or that adaptation served. But as an adult, we are in charge of our own self at that point. And so those adaptations are no longer needed. And so the breath work just really shows where those adaptations have kind of been, running the show in their life. And then when they are aware of it and they loosen up the energy that has been blocked in their systems, that is now wreaking havoc on their health and wellness, that's when you start to see these beautiful transformations. And so I've witnessed so many beautiful transformations, people reclaiming their power and strength and learning how to say yes learning how to say no instead of saying yes to everything that's not aligned with them. And really just, finding their truth, finding their voice and expressing themselves. And it comes at a loss sometimes with, you're losing maybe some friendships, or maybe some family members don't like you now standing up for your truth and standing and using your voice because they got, something out of you being small and shrinking yourself. So now you're becoming empowered, and that's kind of changing the dynamic of those relationships. Sometimes you're going to get lonely when you're healing, but that's just making room for the real aligned connections, the real aligned friendships. And so be okay with it. But it is, I just kind of point that out, like be aware that you could feel a little bit lonely while you're healing, but that's going to level out once you kind of find your tribe.
Yeah, absolutely. You spoke about so many different things here, like authentic self and really finding yourself. And in that process of, my podcast is called Unmute with Priya, because it's about, somewhere along the way, somebody pressed the mute button on us and then we started playing small. And so then you come into adulthood, and I think you and I are around the same age. And all of a sudden you're just like, wait a second, I don't, and it could be an event, some significant life-changing event, just as you described. And I had a head injury that just wakes you up to, hey, things can be different. There's one thing that you touched on that, there's so much out there in social media. Everybody is talking about nervous system. So if you could share just a little bit about like why everybody is talking about nervous system. What is it that's coming to the surface with nervous system that everybody's becoming aware of?
I'm sure there's a lot more information out on social media. And so like the nervous system, when we're younger, we don't have the filters. So from 0 to 7, we are taking in everything from our surroundings, and we don't have the filter. So we're trying to attune from our caregivers. But if our caregivers are not attuned and their nervous system is dysregulated, then we're attuning to a dysregulated caregiver. And that sets us up for wreaking, like a whole havoc of a system. And so later on in life, you feel dysregulated, you feel ADHD, you feel hyperactive, you feel like you can't, like your mind is always racing or going and thinking, and you can't shut it down. And so to calm all of that, you just, with the power of the breath, you're just regulating your nervous system with just different breath techniques. And it brings you from a heightened state, always on alert, to kind of just nice, soothing breath to get you back into like a very grounded presence. And so it's really just to witness people who are super dysregulated when they start with me, to then seeing how they have the power now to, that's going to happen. You're going to have stressful moments, but to see how they've went from reacting to everything to kind of allowing it to just, soothe themselves and then respond where they're not going to have to apologize later for their reaction. So that's been really awesome to see, some of my clients take that power and do something wonderful with it, just to kind of regulate themselves before, hurting others. And I always say that if you have wounds and they're not healed, sometimes you will bleed on others. And so if to stop the bleed, you have to heal the wound, and that wound is within. And so that's where, guiding them to go inward to find those wounds and heal them. It creates a more grounded presence and a more regulated nervous system.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned something to me before we came on the call about how the breath work, specifically the somatic breath work, has helped others with that trauma, with even depression. Tell me a little bit more about what you've noticed in your clients and how they went from point A to point B and that shift, even just with your techniques.
So I have a client who is in her late 60s, and for more than half of her life, she's been severely depressed and has seen a therapist for over 35 years. She's been on every antidepressant, and she's just had a very, just a painful life of depression. And she has been with me for a year now, and we do breath work, we do mindset coaching, and within this year, she doesn't see it as much as I do because she's still living, and it's a gradual change. But I tell all my clients, keep a journal, because a journal is going to track your progress. And so when you feel like you've made no progress or you've taken 2 steps back, I always tell them, go back to day 1 and look where you're at. Compared to day 1, you're going to see such a beautiful transformation. Even if it's not exactly where you want to be yet, you are making progress, and give yourself some grace, because this is all new, And so this one lady, she has eliminated the need for counseling. She went from 120 milligrams of antidepressants for 35 years. Now she's down to 20, and she's hoping to get off, this year. And so it's been amazing to watch her learn how to regulate her nervous system by the power of the breath, and just to see her have that empowerment within her to know that she can do this and she doesn't have to rely on anyone else. She is like learning the tools. She's getting the tools and learning how to use them. And then I have another lady who is also in her 60s. And what I'm finding is a lot of these people who are coming later in life, they didn't have the tools. They didn't have, a mentor. They didn't have anybody helping guide them. And so if you don't know what you don't know what to fix. And so just by educating and then giving them these tools, it's helping them to really find the power from within. And so this other lady also was depressed for 65 years, and she came, and I've been treating her for, not treating, but helping guide, mentor her for about a year. And she's had also another just amazing transformation. It's so awesome to see when these people can go from severely depressed for a majority of their life, to releasing shame, releasing guilt, and finding like that shame was not even theirs to carry. That guilt, they had nothing to be guilty of, but it was a program from childhood that carried through, and they carried that energy all the way through. Or they were ashamed of how their family was, when they were being raised, they were ashamed of their family dynamic, the dysfunction, and to release that shame because it's not theirs to carry anymore. It just, guiding them through the release of that, and then the mindset coaching on the, side of that. It's been beautiful to watch these rapid transformations. It's not taking me 35 years to help them like some of these, counselors have been. These clients have gone through counseling for those amount of years, and they're telling me, after, a few breathwork journeys, they're like, this is more powerful than I've ever been through. So that is a rapid transformation for them, especially at this age of life, because, that's ingrained thinking and behavior at 65 and 68.
And it sounds like with breathwork, you're really getting to the root.
Absolutely.
There's a place for counseling, but sometimes counseling can definitely keep
absolutely.
you in this loop of repeating, and this is getting to the source energy of what's creating the trauma. This isn't.
Yes.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, because, if 95% of our subconscious thinking, it's in the body. And you can't access that through talk therapy because it's really in the body. And so you have to use the body. And by breath work, by using the body, by energetics, by bringing these energies out of these locked storages, it just releases that energy. And then when they release the energy, it makes room for like what's to come. And they have this like, wow, that felt really great. And I feel lighter. And what just happened? And, and then from there, you add a little bit of mindset coaching to it. So you can start tweaking the old thinking, the stinking thinking, as I say, you start tweaking that. And then they're like, why did I think like that? Well, because that was a program that has been running the show for a long time, and so, but to see people drop like 30 pounds, not doing one thing else, this 68-year-old, not changing diet, doesn't exercise, dropped 30 pounds just with breath work.
Reminds me of the book, Bessel van der Kolk's Body Keeps the Score.
The Body Keeps the Score, yes.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a lot of people, and it's amazing that people are doing so much in the healing space now to really complement what we've done traditionally with counseling. Now there's more people doing all different kinds of energetic healing. What sets you apart from within your space, within the healing space, within somatic breathwork? Tell me a little bit more about your specific technique.
I use what's called 9D, so it's 9 dimensions of sound. So we use headphones that are noise canceling, and I have my clients wear an eye mask, so they're in their own private journey. So there's no distraction. So if I have a group of 12, they're not hearing everybody scream, moan, breathe. They're literally in their own space, and then there's no distractions, from visuals because they have an eye mask. And I really emphasize a safe container. I really try to make sure that they feel very safe and that there's that trust, because it takes safety to heal. When you have wounds that isolated you and separated you, I want to create a community to make them feel safe so that they can heal. They can release and heal in a safe setting. And so I feel like I do really good at putting a safe community together. Have some women that are just amazing. And, when we first started, everybody was like, I don't have any friends anymore. Like all my friends, this and, that. And I said, we're going to change that, because this is a safe tribe and a safe community. And it's amazing to see these ladies calling each other on the side and going to lunch. And I do a lot of in-person in my town. And so that is a benefit, for us. We have, in-person events that we'll hold at the house, and so they really are thriving. And it's just so rewarding to see that, like that they're thriving, and no matter what their age is, it's awesome to witness and to be a part of.
I love this. I've never heard of the noise canceling, and I love that they can have their experience, just having experienced somatic breathwork, or my own breathwork sessions, and just being in a space where I could hear others. This sounds like you've got the safety of others, and you can have your own experience still. I love this.
Yes.
My first breathwork session I went to, it was in a ballroom at an event I went to, and there was probably 800 people. And so I had no idea what to expect. And when we started breathing, I was alarmed, because I was just like, is this demonic exorcism? Like, there was so much moaning and groaning and screaming. And I was just like, this is crazy. So I went 2 more times, because it was an event that was a 3-day event. And the second time it was a little bit gentler, and I felt a little bit more comfortable. And then, after that, when I discovered the 9D program, I was like, that's my thing right there. Like, nobody has to be distracted by anybody else. And, we can all be in our own journey and come out of it. And at the end of breath work, we do a beautiful integration. We discuss what came up, what energy they were feeling, kind of move through them. Some people feel like almost like they call it like lightning, or energy just moving through their body. And some of them don't even know what that means. They just say, I'm feeling just some shocking energy, something going through my body. And so just to be able to integrate what that experience means, and what it means going forward, how to integrate that back into, everyday life. I think that's an extremely important aspect of the breath work. Like, you can have an experience, but when you come out of it, if you don't know what that means and what to do with it, sometimes you just are kind of back in the same situation. And now you've freed up some space, you've cleared out some energy. But if you don't have something to put back in its place, like a different way of thinking, or holding it with some light energy, like that energy is going to get filled in again, in those vacant spaces. So I really try to leave them with some good, positive mind shifting and information, and just to really make sure they're integrated well before we leave.
Oh, that just sounds completely transformative. It sounds amazing.
Yes.
When they have the headphones on, it's just noise canceling. They're not hearing any music.
Yes, they're going to
Okay.
have so 9 dimensions of sound. So there is, different frequencies or healing frequencies. Okay. There's a guided it's not a meditation, it's a guided script that is along with an intention. So we have many different intentions that we have set up. And say, like, if we're going to do something about letting go, we put in the letting go script and we push play, and they're listening to a guided script of how to let go and what that means. And then you've got the binary beats, so it's going back and forth. It's like surround sound. There's just multi sound dimensions going on, and that helps to heal the brain and helps to create new neural pathways. Yeah. And so, they're just totally in their own sound experience.
I love the sound of it, because that when I had my head injury, I literally placed a sound bowl on my head and struck it, and I could hear the beat side to side, and that's literally what healed me. It was because nobody could heal it. No, the doctors just said, this is what you have to deal with. Wow. So like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, you started in a completely different career, and now you're moving into this healing space. What's the lesson that you learned early on that something that you wish you had known before stepping into this work, or maybe a lesson only experience can teach?
That energy is real. Like before this, I was very religious, and I did not, mess with anything that was kind of like spiritual. And then when I went to my first breathwork ceremony or breathwork session, I was just like, wow, what just happened? Because I got into a transformation mindset. And so when I got into that mindset, it was like a meditative mindset. And I thought, where did that message come from? And so I realized, like, energy is real. And if we have such tight programs and conditioning in us, it's really hard to be open to like receiving new information. And being that I was very religious minded, I was very closed off to a lot of this spiritual stuff. And now I realize we are a spiritual being having a human experience. And so, I just tell my clients, like, you're not making mistakes, you're learning. You're like, these are all learning opportunities. So I went from being a perfectionist, trying to make sure I was not making any mistakes in life, trying to really be that, that high achiever. And then now I realize there is no mistakes. These are all learning opportunities for our growth and evolution. And I'm so appreciative of just that mindset tweak, because that has really given me permission to show up and be human, and expect that you're going to have, defeats sometimes, and it's not the end of the game. It's just, that's your level up. You're like learning so that you can keep growing, in that area.
You bring up something that I've come in contact with quite a bit, is when you're, we are energetic beings, we can't deny that, but what would you say to somebody who is looking to explore this work, but is so rooted in their faith and maybe has that conflict that you're stepping outside of yourself, or you're invoking energies or things that are outside of God? What would you say to somebody who's struggling with that, who's hearing this right now?
I would say first, they have to be ready. They have to be the one to make the choice that they're ready to do it. And if there's a hesitation, I would say then they're not ready. But if they're ready, it would be because usually it's something catastrophic in their, life has happened to make them feel like it doesn't matter now. I need to find something different. I need to, whatever it might be, to heal. And that's kind of what it was for me, because, I had God, like I had religion. I still have God in my life, but I had religion, and, going to church and having the pastors just give you the same tools, pray about it, read your Bible, be in Bible study, come to church, every Sunday, well, that wasn't saving my marriage. And, so there was some deep wounds after I left my husband, because that didn't save my marriage. Everything being that I was like that perfectionist kind of person, trying so hard to save a marriage and getting the same tools given, praying and Bible study and all this stuff, but it didn't save the marriage. So I left, and I was just kind of like, I felt defeated. And I realized the church was giving me the tools that they knew to give me. And through my fundamental kind of Christianity, it was just, that was it. That was the only tools. They did not tell me to go to a counselor. They wanted to counsel, within the church. They did not tell me, it could be childhood trauma. That would have been amazing had someone told me anything like that, because that would have been a good tool to help save a marriage. And that was not given. And so, there was a little bit of hurt and resentment. And after, my husband and I's divorce, because I felt like I did everything that I was supposed to do based on, what my church was saying to do. And then the marriage failed anyways. And now I know like I'm not in control of my ex, and I'm not, at the time, I didn't know what I didn't know about childhood trauma and about energetics and about all of these things. So the divorce has led me to something beautiful, even though it was painful. And so I call it my painfully beautiful transformation, my painfully beautiful healing journey, because there was so much pain in the beginning. I think I cried probably every day for the first 9 months after I separated from my husband. And it took me about 2 years to be able to talk about it without crying. And so it was very painful, but in those tears, I was releasing, energy that had been suppressed. And in those tears, I was grieving. And so I was really feeling, I got into the body, and I allowed those energies to surface and to be processed. And it's when we trap those emotions in and we don't allow them to be processed, that's when they start to wreak havoc on our life, our system, our health. And so I'm grateful that, right away, I knew that I needed to deprogram whatever was programmed in me. And for some reason, it was some God intuition, but I knew that within a month. I said, I need to fix my picker. And not anything against my ex, but I knew I was part of the breakdown of the marriage, and I needed to figure out what my part was. So that was, me needing to figure that I needed to deprogram some of the things that I was believing and reprogram them with something was more aligned with my thinking and my being, and it took me a while. It took me about 3 years to let go of the religious constructs, the way I was taught. And that was very difficult because it was my anchor. And so by letting that go, it was freeing, because that construct was given to me. That construct was, programmed into me by many different places of my life, other than just church, my family and the society, the friends I hung out with. It was, reinstated by just the group of friends we hung out with. But I had to learn my construct of God. And, right. Before I looked outside of me, like, where is God and where is my Savior? And I ended up finding through breath work, and that was interesting. And I also did some psychedelic plant medicine. And through those two modalities, I found that if you have breath in your lungs, you have God in you. You do not have to say the sinner's prayer. You do not have to do all these religious, traditional, things that say that you're saved or that you've got God in your heart. And I realized that just by having breath in your lungs, you are enough, and you have God in you because God formed you. And so once I started unraveling my construct and really finding one that aligned with me and my truth and my soul, it was like freedom. It was total freedom. And then I looked at my friends and my family who are still Christians, and I say, and it's okay for you to believe that way. It's okay for however you believe to believe. And now I really feel that we're all on a journey, and we're all walking each other home. If we can be kind and loving to one another, we're going to find our way, And so Absolutely. That is my purpose, is to mentor people to find the way to their path, to find their path home. And so that part, I feel very privileged and honored to be able to help people to do that.
It's such a beautiful message, and just the acceptance and that everybody is where they are in their given moment. And, we're not forcing anybody to come into this place with us, that, just allowing everybody to be on their own journey. And I love how you brought God into the breath. Doing the Self-Realization Fellowship right now. I'm doing their teachings, and they talk about that just God is within us,
Yeah.
God is not outside of us. And so the fact that we have a breath is God. And it's a beautiful
And
process.
Priya, in the very beginning, I had a friend who asked if I would like to do a psychedelic journey for healing. And I was just like terrified because, I was brought up with Nancy Reagan as the nope to dope and ugh to drugs era, right? So I was like, I haven't even done any drugs. So I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. They said, don't look at it as a drug. This is a medicine to heal. Okay, whatever, I'm thinking this is crazy. And so I did the first journey and I was terrified and I was gripped tight to my constructs. And very difficult journey just because I was so gripped tight to my beliefs and my construct of God. And I didn't want to disappoint God and I didn't want to be doing drugs. And here I am now in the ceremony and no one knows where I'm there because it was 6 years ago. And it was before, it was as accepted as it is now. It's becoming, a little bit more accepted. And so I was there by myself with no one knowing where I was at. So after I take the medicine, I thought, I just gave into peer pressure. I want to go home. I can't even go home. No one knows where I'm at. I don't have a ride. And I was just kind of freaking out, but it was all part of the process to let go. And then when I did another one, I went in there with the intention of, I want to know who God is without my construct. Who is God? And so I go through the night, and at the end of the night, this message came to me and it said, KNOW. So no God, NO, no box. And I was like, holy heck, we put God in a box with all of our different religions. We box them in and we say, this is how big our God is in this religion. And after that ceremony, I thought, God is bigger than any box that we put him in, and break down the walls of the box. Let God be God. Let God do God. And he's like the ultimate source supply of, us. We have this divinity within us. And I feel now to be connected to myself is my connection to God. And so God can work through me, through his divine instruction through me. Our intuition is God's instruction. That is him showing us, or her showing, whomever source is showing us, what is right for our soul. And so I really now see intuition something completely different than before. As a Christian, I was taught our heart is wicked and deceitful and it will lead you astray. So you don't follow your heart. And now I'm like, I think there's something different to be said about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Our heart really has a lot of receptors and neurons that are very much like our brain. So if, our heart was designed so we can follow it, so that we can find the path, what's aligned for us. And it doesn't have to match another person, but what is given to us as instruction or as our divine, download for us.
It's just amazing what, if a person were to work with you, the transformation, I could just see the transformation that they will go through, how empowered they will feel. And then even just the liberation that you have, because we have so many constructs. We don't even know how many that have just been programmed into us from when we were children. And so when you start to let that go, you essentially are living a life of freedom and bliss. And that's what the authentic self is,
Yes.
Yeah. So, as we come to a close, what would you say to somebody who's in this transitional place in their life? Just maybe they are exploring healing, maybe they are exploring breath work, and a lot of pain is coming to the surface, and they've got one foot in the door, one foot out the door, just like, what am I doing? And I say this because this was me. What would you say to that person who's in transition?
In transition, it's scary because, you're in the shift, like shift happens, and so you're just kind of, it's scary. You want to anchor into what you do know or what you have known as truth, but you're also knowing that's no longer aligned. So I've explained it before, like, it's kind of like you have an anchor, but you're floating into space, and you have a tether, a long rope on this anchor. So you keep following that rope out until, if you get scared, you grab onto it again, and then you kind of loosen up your grip and you grab onto it again until you feel you can trust your new construct, or you can trust the shift is okay and you can let go. And then a little bit, you feel like you're floating, like, now where am I at? Where am I going now? And you want to reach back for that grounded old construct or old truth, but like, it's no longer aligned. It's no longer who you are. It's, you are shifting your identity. And once you accept that, it is the most beautiful, transformation, because now you can allow yourself massive growth, because
Amazing.
you're not grabbing those old constructs. Those are, sometimes they're just limiting beliefs and blocks. And those are those constructs that will keep you tied to what you used to be. But if you're evolving, you need to let some of those go.
Amazing. So you had mentioned that you do in-person events. So tell us, so that the listeners or viewers will know how to get in touch with you. How can a person work with you? Whether it's in person or virtual, please share more about that.
I'm in Southern California, and so I do some of my my classes here in my hometown. But I also do virtual. So I do through Zoom. And so that has been able to, to connect me to people on the other side of the United States, which is quite interesting. But so it's just through Zoom or through online. I'm working with another facilitator, and we're looking into doing maybe a retreat. And so we'll see if that's, something in the 2026.
And how can someone get in touch with you if they're looking to explore having sessions with you or coming to one of your events?
They can get on my Instagram, which is somatic_breath_work. And they can also access me through, I have Somatic Breathwork on Facebook. So either one of those ways, they can get a hold of me through that. Amazing.
And we'll put those links in the description for anybody who's interested in getting in touch with you, because I want to come and actually have an experience with it. This sounds amazing. Even though I'm a breathwork facilitator, I'm like, nope, I want to come to you. This is amazing.
And sometimes even when you're a breathwork facilitator, it's awesome for someone else to hold space for you, so that you can just relax in to the journey. Like you can just be a breather.
I don't do it enough because I want somebody to facilitate it for me. It's just like being a massage therapist and you want somebody to do the massage on you. It doesn't feel good when you're massaging your own leg. So, right.
Yeah.
So anything in closing that you would like to share with the listeners? I feel like we have hit a lot of really important topics today, and I can't wait for this episode to come out. But anything in closing and we're going to end with something fun before that, but anything else from you?
No, I really just feel like I love working with, people who are in addiction or trauma, because I feel like those are two areas that touch close to my heart. My mom suffered from depression her entire life till she was 65. I have family members who also suffer from depression and have addictions. And, I look at addiction, there's so much shame in addiction for these people. Yeah. But really what addiction is these people have found a modality to soothe their nervous system. And it numbs it so that they don't feel the pain of it anymore. So, but with breath work, it's a natural, you have breath 24/7. And so you can have a different modality to calm your nervous system. So I like to work with those groups because it just, reduces the shame. It takes it away and helps them to heal. And I think that's such a beautiful transformation for them.
Amazing. All right. So we're going to have a speed round. I'm just going to ask you some questions that are completely unrelated, just so that we can have fun together. So if you had to eat one food forever, what would it be?
Oh gosh. I would say a bean and cheese burrito.
Do you have any pets?
I do. I have a dog. She has one eye missing. I found her about 5 years ago, and she's been a blessing to us.
So if your dog could say anything about you right now, what would she say about you?
Give me my snack.
Okay, what's a hidden talent most people don't know about you?
Talent? Gosh, I can make my tongue in a little different position.
That's a talent. Not everybody can do that. Your favorite 80s song?
80s?
80s.
I loved Cyndi Lauper and Madonna. So maybe Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
And the best advice you've ever received?
Just do you.
That is the perfect way to end this episode. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. I so appreciate you being here, Angel, and thank you for sharing your story, your journey, and all the gifts that you have to offer. I can't wait to share this with everyone. For those of you who are interested, we'll have more information on the show notes or below this video if you're watching on YouTube so that you can get in touch with Angel. And this show was brought to you by Project Icon.